Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. The rumors starting to swirl on Twitter that Chip Kelly might be fired as soon as after the USC game this Saturday as UCLA's head coach. Want to talk a little bit about the future of this UCLA program heading into the Big Ten, potential candidates for UCLA to hire as they move into the Big Ten Conference. Before we get into it, just want to say thank you to you guys and a shout out to the UCLA fans. This is a team that we talked a lot about throughout the season, done a ton of game breakdowns. You guys have always shown a ton of love to the boys. If you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. And more importantly, would love to hear from you guys here. One, do you think Chip Kelly should be gone as UCLA's head coach? And two, and more importantly, if this does happen, who should be UCLA going after as their new head coach? They're going to give you the tee box here. And I'm going to start off with a simple question. Should Chip Kelly be gone as UCLA's head coach here?
And here's where I think the conflict comes from me is like, if you just look at what they've done on the field under Chip Kelly, I think it's very hard to say he should be gone. And I get it. They haven't cracked through, but you look, the Pac-12 has been really, really tough in his era, especially with Lincoln Riley coming in. Mario Cristobal, again, didn't necessarily succeed at the highest level, but him and then the extension to Lanning, very good Oregon teams for a lot of it. Utah's obviously been good. So they've been in a tough conference. They've won a lot of games, won a lot of good games, not quite broken through. But I think the real crux of the issue is if he's really as bad with managing this program as people are kind of indicating. And again, you haven't necessarily seen that. And these are rumors. Like, they're not getting gutted by transfer portal guys typically. So I don't know how much I believe or it's as bad as people say. But if it is like that bad with this modern era of college football, you can't be doing that.
Yeah, my take on it is I think Chip Kelly is a good football coach. I think he's an offensive mastermind. And the only problem is the offense has been the Achilles heel of this unit in 2023. Like, there are some explanations for you're starting a true freshman at quarterback in Dante Moore for a large part of the season. You're playing with a bunch of quarterbacks that are all banged up. Where I understand it, and again, I think Chip Kelly, a solid head football coach. But when you're moving into the Big Ten, like, you have to have a coach that, one, is committed to being a head coach, and that's more than just coaching a football team. It's meeting with the donors. It's running a program. And from what it sounds like, Chip Kelly does not like meeting with the NIL donors. It really has kind of a disgruntled program with the players in the locker room. You can't have that type of stuff going on. And then secondly, it's not only about scheming up an offense. And when you move to the Big Ten, you have to be physical along the lines of scrimmage. And when I look at this UCLA program, again, I don't know if I'm full on the board of firing him, but I understand the concerns of this program. You got to have a guy as a head coach that's going to be committed to building in the trenches and having that physicality in the Big Ten. And I'm not sure if Chip Kelly is the man for that job.
Yeah, their offensive lines really haven't been at that level that I think they need to be. And they do have a very good defensive line the past couple of years. But, like, you're right. You can't play the way they play with those starting five who, again, not enough pros, not enough. You can see when they go play a really tough Utah team, you just see where the gap is. And you can't go into the Big Ten playing with that type of gap.
100%. So you look at the box, you got to be able to recruit at a high level. Chip Kelly hasn't never been much of a recruiter. And then you got to be able to develop in the trenches. Those are two things that he's not checking. And those are arguably the two most important boxes you have to check to be a head coach in the Big Ten. Dill, getting to the little bit more of the exciting discussion for UCLA fans is the head coach potential vacancy. And again, this hasn't happened yet. We're just chopping it up right now. Dill, if I were to ask you, who do you think the best fit for UCLA's head coach is heading into the Big Ten? What you got for me?
I think number one guy for me is Manny Diaz. And I think Manny Diaz, I'm not sure how hot of a commodity he's going to be, but he should be an extremely hot one. Again, I think a guy who got let go too soon at Miami, a guy we know who can recruit, but also, like, when it comes to coaching and defense, I don't know if there's anyone as good. I mean, what he's got with that Penn State group is just next level good. Obviously, Michigan got a very good taste of that, our program. He's the guy.
I mean, Manny Diaz, he does. What did we just talk about? The boxes you got to check. One, can you recruit Manny Diaz, whether he's recruiting as a coordinator or a head coach, can recruit at a high level. Did it at Miami, has done it at Penn State, but more importantly, has developed that talent. I mean, he is putting out an elite defense at Penn State this year. I think Manny Diaz, again, checking the box of the head coaching experience at a big program and being an elite developer of talent, specifically along the trenches. I can get with that, though. I'm going to go There's two options that I have on my board. One, I'm going to go with the low-hanging fruit here. Jonathan Smith at Oregon State. I think Oregon State getting left out of the Power 5 conversation, I think would make him maybe look for a new job. And you look at what you want going into the Big Ten. Jonathan Smith is winning football games in the Pac-12 as a Big Ten team. I mean, you look at why they're having so much success. They are running the football, have a nasty offensive line, and play physical defense. That's what you want. In Oregon State, it's a tough place to recruit, but the development's there. And if he takes this job at UCLA, I can certainly see him getting the recruiting going. But more importantly, I mean, he has been very, very good with quarterback, completely changing the trajectory of DJU at Oregon State. I think Jonathan Smith, born in Pasadena, would make a hell of a lot of sense for UCLA.
Another big thing about him is a guy who you feel like wants to be in college football. And Chip Kelly is maybe the opposite, where you kind of get the sense he wants to be in the NFL.
Totally agree.
His program, the way the NFL is run, but the NFL doesn't really want him. So that, again, like when you talk about some of those rumors of how he's managing the program, I'm sure there's a part of that as his, like, this is like his backup plan. Jonathan Smith, I think, loves college football. I think he wants to be in college football, and I think he'd do a really good job at UCLA.
All right, going off the dome here, you got any more candidates for the UCLA Bruins here?
You know, one that I think they should, and I don't know well enough if Jedd Fisch, and that'll be my next guy, is I don't know how that ended, if that ended on really bad terms.
Right, the interim coach.
Exactly, and I don't know the details around that when they went and hired Chip Kelly. If he would take that job, I think he should be looking for a new job. There's no way he should want to be at Arizona, considering they apparently misforecasted their revenue, are now out of money, $280 million short or something. Preposterous news coming out of a big time athletic department. If Jedd Fisch wants to leave, and I think he should want to leave and would take the UCLA job, I think they should give him a shot. Like, you just see how good he's done at Arizona in terms of turning that program around and recruiting really as well as I think he can.
And what I love about Jedd Fisch, he's an elite evaluator of talent. Like, he won recruiting at a high level, but what he just did in the transfer portal was he put on a clinic. Like, that was a defense that was one of the worst defenses in the Power 5 last year. And he goes to the transfer portal, identifies a lot of guys that can come and play, and they're a top half defense in the country this year. And that is a really important. I'm not saying UCLA needs to build their program off the transfer portal, but having that ability to identify guys in the transfer portal that you think can be quality starters for your football team and making it happen and hitting on those guys, which Jedd Fisch did, I think is a massive asset. Jedd Fisch proved that. I mean, what he's done at Arizona, not enough people are talking about. This team's a top 25 team in the country. 2 years ago, they won one game, I believe. Like that, I mean, a massive turnaround for Jedd Fisch. Still, one other name I got, and I like this one. I like this one. It's a little risky. The Oregon Ducks go down to Athens, Georgia, and grab a Kirby Smart disciple. And it's worked pretty well for the Oregon Ducks, right? Dan Lannon crushing it on the recruiting trail. That team looks like a Big Ten caliber team as they move into the Big Ten. Glenn Schumann, young head coach, elite recruiter, although does not have the head coaching experience just like Dan Lanning didn't, has proven that, one, he can get it done on the recruiting trail and develop that talent into top-notch players. Glenn Schumann, the defensive coordinator at the Georgia Bulldogs, I think would make a lot of sense in UCLA.
You might need to bring someone in who can kind of help defend California from the Oregon Ducks.
Dan Lannon's raiding it.
Especially on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, he's coming down and getting almost anyone he wants, it feels like, at this point. And, yeah, Glenn Schumann maybe can help keep some of those kids from the South Los Angeles area and those big prep schools, the Don Boscos, the Mater Deis. Like, can he keep those schools, or can he keep a couple of those top defensive prospects in the state? And no one's been
Glenn Schumann, Dan Lanning recruiting battles would be electric. Because if there's one thing that Kirby Smart's not going to have anyone on the staff that doesn't recruit their tails off. Dan Lanning recruits his tail off. Glenn Schumann recruits his tail off. Chip Kelly does not recruit his tail off. I would love Glenn. He is going to grind in the state of California. He's going to get that defense right. And my big thing is, okay, he has maybe limited experience as a head coach. He can go hire an elite offensive coordinator that's maybe been a head coach and help kind of facilitate being kind of a newer head coach. I think there's ways around not having that experience as a head coach. Still, if you want to throw out one more, I'm open for it.
One last guy I would probably give is David Shaw. And David Shaw's a a coach who I think
Yeah.
at Stanford his time ran out on him. And frankly, I think college football just kind of surpassed what Stanford wanted to do, where the academics are probably on a higher plane than what they want their football program to be. Like they're very much in that vein. And with the transfer portal and with NIL, I think that just became a really, really hard spot to win. And David Shaw probably saw the writing on the wall. I think a new place, reinvigorated. I think he could do a really good job at UCLA, and he fits the Big Ten very well in terms of what he wanted to do.
I love that. And I don't think a lot of people mention David Shaw. I think a lot of people have forgotten David Shaw even exists. David Shaw was a very good football coach for Stanford. I think it just got to the modern era of college football. It is a hard job to win at Stanford. You can't use the portal because guys can't get into grad school. The NIL money, not there at Stanford. David Shaw, good football coach, proven track record of winning, given the resources that UCLA has. I think would make a lot of sense. One last guy I have, Dan Lynn. I mean, like he's been a very good defensive coordinator. If you want a guy that is going to play good defense, maybe steady the ship, just elevate Dan Lynn. He's done a phenomenal job. I don't know if I love it, but I would throw him out there. Though the last thing I want to talk about, if you were to rank this head coaching vacancy, where would you put it? Because what I'm looking at, okay, Texas A&M's number one. I don't think anyone's arguing that. Outside of that, like if I'm the head coach, far from it, and I'm looking at where I want to go and where can I win, I'm taking the UCLA job over Michigan State and over Mississippi State any day of the week. I think there's a very strong argument that UCLA has kind of second bids on the head coaching carousel this year.
Yeah, and you look, the only other job that is kind of up in that level that might be open is Arkansas. I'm also taking UCLA over Arkansas.
Hard
Just
places to win at Mississippi State and Arkansas.
It's like you're starting from such a lower point of everyone else in the SEC who's good. It's like you're just miles away from what Bama is or Georgia and even Tennessee. So it's like it's just trying to revive that. It's like, are you going to go take down Nick Saban? I don't think so.
Yeah.
Do it at Arkansas.
You go to UCLA, like there's a ton of talent in California. If you kind of hit it with it, like there's gonna be the NIL money. This is the nice weather too. You could convince me to go coach out there, so it makes a lot of sense for UCLA to be one of the most sought after jobs for potential head coaches.
And I don't think going into the Big Ten and playing. I mean, like you talk the SEC, you're playing kind of prime time pretty much every week. The Big Ten, with the addition of those four schools, becomes probably the most deep conference, I think, in college football. You adding like you got Penn State, Michigan, and Ohio
State, Oregon, USC. It's a loaded conference.
So I think that becomes a very attractive spot to recruit at. I think it's a very attractive job. I'm with you. I think aside from A&M, and unless somebody leaves I don't know, like a Texas or an Oklahoma to go coach A&M, it's like what's better than UCLA? It's not going to be like one of these schools that are going to get a guy.
This is an exciting time for UCLA. And again, it's not me hating on Chip Kelly as a head coach as much as I do see the concerns that the administration has with Chip Kelly rolling into the Big Ten. Would love to hear from you guys.
You can't be so stodgy in college football right now. You're seeing like the waves of it with Dabo, even a guy who'd been unbelievably good. And you see some like cracks in what's going on in their program. You just can't be so unadaptive. And Chip Kelly is one of the most stuck in his ways. You heard some of the NFL stories from him. You just can't be that way anymore in college football. I don't care if you don't like to recruit or deal with it.
You get big old man vibes of Chip Kelly. Like they're trying to convince him to get off the flip phone. He's like, I had this damn flip phone my whole life, and he just like doesn't want to make any changes. I get it. All right. Appreciate you guys rocking with the fellas. Again, if you do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and more importantly, let us know in the comment section how you guys are feeling about this. Again, just rumors, and then the potential candidates that you would like to see at UCLA. Appreciate y'all. We'll talk to you guys later. Peace.